The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
At that time, again Jesus spoke to the chief priests and the elders of the people in parables, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who gave a marriage feast for his son and sent his servants to call those who were invited to the marriage feast, but they would not come. Again, he sent other servants, saying, 'Tell them who we invited, behold, I have made ready my dinner. My oxen and my fat calves are killed, and everything is ready. Come to the marriage feast.' But they made light of it and went off, one to his farm, another to his business, while the rest seized his servants, treated them shamefully, and killed them. The king was angry, and he sent his troops and destroyed those murderers and burnt their city. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding is ready, but those invited were not worthy. Go therefore to the streets and invite to the marriage feast as many as you find.' And those servants went out into the streets and gathered all whom they found, both bad and good, so that the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to look at the guests, he saw there a man who had no wedding garment, and he said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without a wedding garment?' And he was speechless. Then the king said to the attendants, 'Bind him hand and foot and cast him into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.'" The Gospel of the Lord. My dear brothers and sisters, today we celebrate the 28th Sunday in Ordinary Time, and the theme of my reflection is the theological virtues is the wedding garment. The theological virtues is the wedding garment. St. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 13, says, "There are three things that last forever: faith, hope, and love." 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13. St. Paul says, there are three things that last forever: faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. And these are the theological virtues, these three: faith, hope, and love. And today we say this is our wedding garment. The Lord is inviting us to a banquet. As we read from the first reading, we are all invited to this wonderful banquet. And in the gospel, again, everybody is welcome to this banquet. Some refused to come, some came. But at the bedrock is that everybody is invited to this wonderful banquet. We shall look at the physical garment just to give us a light on the spiritual garment we are talking about. There was something that happened in an institution. When people came to that institution, they were told that if you want to have distinction, if you want to be a first-class student, you must get 75% at the end of your studies for you to have distinction or first class. And that was all that was told. And at the end, somebody got up to 80, but he was not given that distinction. He was not given first class certificate. And he complained to the upper authority, to the higher authority, that I'm not treated justly, because when I was coming to this institution, I knew that if I have 75%, I'll have my certificate distinction or first class, as it were. And he was told that yes, academically, you had distinction. But there were three categories we are looking at. We are looking at three things in the life of a student to award this 75% and above. An academic is 50% of this total, and the remaining is shared between wisdom and morality. So in this case, you are very good academically, but you have issues with wisdom, you have issues with morality. And so you are not qualified to be given that distinction. He was not with his wedding garment, and so he was not given that distinction. Another issue was a professor was invited to give a talk on the causes of the proliferation of churches in Africa, and the audience were intellectuals, educated people, and so he was invited to talk to people. Why is there a lot of churches in Africa? Why are the churches growing? I mean, different churches are coming up in Africa. What is the reason? People are thinking of different reasons. So he's an expert in religion. So he was invited to give a talk on that topic, and people were ready in the hall or in the auditorium. And he came, very learned professor, very educated. He came, unfortunately, he was wearing a slippers. And so the audience were taken aback. They were flabbergasted and surprised and disappointed. And people started going out. And what he had in him, he was unable to deliver. That was the end of that day, full of embarrassment and disappointment from those who came to listen and from the one who is supposed to offer. And so, in these two stories, there was lack of the wedding garment physically, what people can see, what people can understand. And so, both parties were disappointed. The one that wanted to have distinction was disappointed because he did not have character that did not lack propriety, and he lacked the sense of discernment, wisdom. And so that is how he lost it. And the second person, the dressing, the physical dressing, disqualified him. Yes, you are a professor, you are intellectually capable, but your dressing physically has disqualified you. We shall see you again another day. You can go in peace. That was the end. But in our reflection today, the concentration is the spiritual garment. And that is the focus of the parable of today. And St. Paul, in his letter again to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4, gives us 10 virtues that qualifies us to be in the wedding garment, especially in our journey of faith while alive and as we anticipate life after death. And this is what St. Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. Love, from these three virtues that he gave us, the theological virtues, which he said love is the greatest. He said love, 1, love is patient. 2, love is kind. 3, love is not envious. 4, love is not boastful. 5, love is not arrogant. 6, love is not rude. 7, love does not insist on anything. 8, love is not irritable. 9, love is not resistible. And 10, love does not rejoice in wrong, but rejoice in the truth. So those are the 10 theological virtues that St. Paul is proposing to each of us to be our wedding garment, to be our garment all the days of our life. When you have the virtue of patience, you are able to give other people chance. You realize that you are not the author and finisher of knowledge and wisdom. You realize that you are not to monopolize the truth. Everybody has something to offer. And so, the one who has the spirit and the virtue of patience is the one who opens up to other people and give them chance to participate, to also cooperate in any enterprise that we find ourselves. And this virtue is very free of charge, but very expensive. And many of us lack that virtue. And once we lack that virtue in life, we have missing out. We don't have the garment, and we are not qualified to be at the wedding feast. The second is love is kind. What does it mean to be kind? To have a large heart, to have a large of magnanimity, to have a heart of benevolence, to have a life of love, to have a life of forgiveness, to have a heart to bear and understand other people's problem. And many of us do not have that because of the spirit of egocentrism, because of selfishness, because of the attitude of I, me, it's about me. And that is why our world has degenerated to individualism, because of lack of that large heart to accommodate as many people as possible. When the mother of Jesus came to look for Jesus, and they told Jesus, your mother is looking for you. What did Jesus say? Who is my mother? Who is my father? Who is my brother? And he answered the question that he asked himself. My father, my mother, my brothers and sisters are those who do the will of my Father. Jesus is simply responding to the desire to love as many people as possible, to give chance to as many people as possible in my life. And that is a big virtue that many of us lack. A lot of us lack that virtue. We are so narrow and so myopic and so naive in the way we love. We choose few people and give them everything in our hearts and neglect the majority, among whom will be our Messiah one day. We concentrate on one person and give them all our love. The heart is big enough to love as many as possible. That's what we call the hierarchy of love. The way you love your mother is not the way you love your brother. The way you love your brother is not the way you love your classmate. The way you love your classmate is not the way you love your priest. The way you love your priest is not the way you love a stranger. But what is important, you love all, according to the category of relationship. And you must have the capacity, the ability, and the grace to have a large heart to accommodate all this. And when you have that, you are with your wedding garment. And you will not get it wrong anywhere. You will get it right eventually, here on earth and after this world. Now, love is not envious. Envious is a synonymous word to jealousy. St. Paul says that anyone who loves does not have the spirit of envy. There's difference between envy and admire. One day somebody was telling me, I envy you. I said, no, do not envy me. Admire me. If you envy me, you'll kill me. Envy is a synonymous to jealousy. So if you want to admire me or you want to love me, it's okay. But don't envy me. I'm afraid. Oh, I don't know the meaning of envy. Go and check your dictionary. To be envious is dangerous. You want to be the other person. You can wish to be like, but when you want to be the other person, you must uproot the person. If I want to be you, I'll remove you from where you are. I'll take over your property. I'll take over your house. I'll take over your name. And for me to do that, I must diminish you for me to increase. And love is not envious, St. Paul says. And when you are an envy person, when you are a very jealous person, you do not have the wedding garment. Number 4, love is not boastful. All to the glory of God. All to the glory of God. All that you have, all that you are, all that God has given you is to the glory of his name. If you lose it, you begin to be boastful. You begin to talk about yourself. But what is important is let your light shine. You cannot be timid. You cannot have low self-esteem. You cannot refuse to exhibit the gift that God has given you. But at the end of the day, let God take all the glory. Not half of the glory, not 1/4 of the glory, all the glory. And when you do that, then God will continue to increase you. God will continue to elevate you. Because once you magnify the name of God, God will magnify you. Once you diminish the name of God, God will diminish you. John the Baptist said, he must increase, I must decrease. Even though he was getting it right, he was healing the sick, he was doing the right things in the desert. People were coming, following him. He ran away to the desert to be at peace, but people discovered there's something in the desert and they followed him. And they were even mistaking him to be the Messiah. Are you the Messiah? No. And finally he says, the Messiah is the one to come, is the Lamb of God. And he made a beautiful statement. Despite what you see me doing, the miracles I'm doing, when he comes, he will increase and I will diminish. And shortly after that, he was beheaded. He diminished completely and God, Jesus Christ, increased. So when you become boastful, let people talk about you. Let people say what you can do. Leave people to communicate and evaluate you. Do not talk about. And some of us are even boasting of what we don't have. We tell lies about what we don't have. We tell lies about our families, very shamefully. We avoid our parents in public places. Some of you cannot introduce your mothers to your colleagues. You go and choose a foster mother and introduce as your mother. It's happening. The mother who gave birth to you has become ugly all of a sudden, has become dirty all of a sudden, has become a witch all of a sudden. She didn't kill you when you were a baby. She didn't abort you. Today, you cannot introduce her to the public. When you have such attitude, you lack the wedding garment. The next virtue, love is not arrogant. Arrogant is the senior brother of pride. And the book of Proverbs says, after pride comes destruction. Why are you proud of what? What are you proud about? You live at the mercy of God. I live at the mercy of God. You don't have 0.1% control of your life. Did you hear me? You don't have 0.1, I'm not saying 1%, 0.1 control over your life. Your life is in the hands of God, absolutely. What are you proud about? It's a shame for you to be known to be a proud person. I always insist you must have a good self-esteem. You must celebrate who you are. You must appreciate the beauty of your creation, but you must not be tempted to be proud. You must not be tempted to be arrogant. Know who you are and put yourself where you belong. Don't tell anybody that my father is a minister. We shall discover you. Your father is not a minister. Tell the truth, and the truth will set you free. So those who are arrogant do not have the wedding garment. The next is love is not rude. You don't talk to elders anyhow. You don't argue with people you should not argue with. You don't compete with people who are far above you. Some of you compete with wrong people. Why? How do you compete with your mother? How do you compete with your father? How do you compete with your elder brother? How do you compete with your priest? How do you compete with your teachers, your professors? You know something and they are teaching you in the class. You respect that person. Give him that respect. And you don't demean and bring him down in public. That is rudeness. Anyone who has the virtue of love can never be rude. And when you are rude, you lack the wedding garment. Love does not insist on anything. No. You can't insist on anything, only God. Heraclitus, one of the ancient philosophers, say we are in the state of flux. You cannot step in the same river twice. When you go to Zambezi and you put your leg and you remove your leg and you put it again, it's another river, another water. Except it's another leg. If it's the same leg, it's another river, it's another water. So that is what we are. We are in a state of flux. Only God is unchangeable. Only God is constant. Only God is a free possibility. And why should you insist on anything? Why should you always be the winner? Why should you think that you know it all? You must consult. At this point, even your child can help you to get the answer. Even your subordinates. Even somebody who is younger than you, even somebody who is not as learned as you, can help you to get the answer. Once you see yourself insisting on anything all the time, then you'll be isolated. And many of us are isolated without knowing. Because people will say, as soon as you are coming, they'll say the Alpha and the Omega is coming. And you know what it means. When we see God, nobody can see the face of God and live. So as God is coming, we are running away. So you are now God. So for you to have that virtue, not to insist on everything. There are things that you are an authority. Yes. If you are a medical doctor, you are an authority in the things of medicine. If you are a lawyer, you are an authority in that area. If you are a security officer, you are an authority in that area. But you alone, you are an authority in security matters. You are an authority in medical matters. You are an authority in legal issues. You are an authority in the church. The priest cannot speak, you know the answer. You are an authority when you invite a carpenter, you teach him how to put the nail. When you have never been a carpenter in your life, you are an authority when you invite a plumber, you teach him what to do. You have never been a plumber in your life, you are doomed. You are not in your wedding garment. And when you find yourself in that kind of life, you read critically the Gospel of Luke chapter 22, verse 42. Father, if it is possible, let this chalice pass by. Nonetheless, let thy will be done. And that is why there are two songs I love so much. When I find opposition of something I knew I'm convinced about, when I meet antagonism, when I meet opposition, I go to Matthew To book a Gospel of Luke chapter 22, verse 42. And I like singing these songs. The first is, my God, my Father, why I stray far from my home to life's rough way. Oh, teach me from my heart to say, Jesus, thy will be done. Thy will be done. Thy will be done. Oh, teach me from my heart to say, thy will be done. You cannot insist on everything. There are things you do not know. Only God can insist on everything. And so, my dear brothers and sisters, when you find yourself too argumentative, too controversial, too difficult to correct, too difficult to maintain as a sober person, you pray and ask God to give you the grace to accept His will. If you don't do that, again I said you'll be isolated. You feel that you are with people, but you are alone. Because people will say, you know it all. And once people have categorized you there, it is finished. Then the next virtue is the virtue that we must not play with, irritable. You know what it means to be irritable? Your presence is a nuisance. Once you appear, people are annoyed. Even your face is making them angry. You are unlovable. You make yourself not to be loved. Not that people hate you, your attitude, your approach to life is so negative. Pray not to have such a gift of being irritable. It is a sign of lack of the virtue of love. You must make yourself, not by doing anything extraordinary, by living simple life, honest life, and the life of fidelity every day. And you find yourself lovable. When you become a nuisance, when people sit and you are not there, there's nothing good they talk about you. That's why you must be asked, you must do self-evaluation every day. You must ask people. Even Jesus asked, who do people say that I am? If you don't do self-examination, if you don't do self-evaluation, you become irritable. Everybody is talking about white. You are the only person seeing black. And you insist that you are seeing black. And you are 20, you alone can see white. Are you a spirit? That you alone can see white. You know what it means to be a nuisance? You are like a virus. People cannot see you, but you are eating into them. You are like cancer. It's better they see who is causing this cancer. Now they don't, but they see irritable person. Pray that God will give you that spirit to be lovable. And it's just attitudinal, the way you live your life with people. The next one is love is not resentful. You don't keep grudge. When you have the spirit of resentment, very little thing you withdraw. Some of us have that tendency of passive withdrawal. Nobody can challenge us. Nobody can advise us. We withdraw to our shell, and we are burning and dying inside. We are an embodiment of hatred. And once you have that kind of life, you are always planning evil. You cannot pray. Anybody that stands on your way to advise you is your enemy. Some people cannot be advised. You can imagine, I am your priest, I'm your pastor, I fear to advise you. I fear, F-E-A-R. Then it's dangerous. The fly that has no one to advise it will follow the corpse to the grave. Because the little advice you are giving, you take it negative. You become resentful. You stop coming to choir. You stop coming to the small Christian community. You stop coming to whether it's Legion of Mary or whatever because somebody has advised you. No. Open your mind and your heart. If somebody can face you and tell you something about your weakness, that person loves you. And if any of you here can face me and tell me, Father Naji, my weakness, even if I'll be annoyed, I'll think about it later. Because you must be courageous, you must love me to do that. So let us learn not to be resentful. Let us learn to open our hearts. Because the fly that has no one to advise it will follow the corpse to the grave. People give money to go for counseling. People give money to people to advise them. You have it free of charge. Free. And you are resentful. Your face that is so beautiful, that beautiful and handsome face, you turn it to something else. You start behaving like a cow. Your face looks like a cow because somebody has advised you. The next is love does not rejoice in wrongdoing. You don't celebrate evil things. You don't teach people how to do evil things. You don't teach people how to commit adultery. You don't teach people how to steal. You don't teach people how to tell lies. You don't teach people how to be cunning. You teach people how to do the right thing. Love rejoices when people rejoice. Love is sad when others are sad. When you have such tendency, you are not with your wedding garment. So it's not about physical dressing. It's not about how we appear in church. It's not about how constant we come to church. It's about the purification of the intentions of our heart. And that is why we must always pray that the Lord himself will have a way to help us to move on with life. And the second song I enjoy when I want to insist on anything is this. Have your way, Lord, have your way. Have your way, Lord, have your way. Have your way, Lord, have your way. Oh, Lord, have your way. These 10 virtues that St. Paul has given us as a guide all culminate into the 10 commandments that God gave us in the book of Exodus chapter 20. When we are able to manage to live these 10 virtues, then we find ourselves keeping the 10 commandments. And how do we manage to live such life that St. Paul himself is guiding us? Is what he told us today in the second reading. You must always be sober. You should not be obsessed about anything. St. Paul says, in scarcity and in plenty, I remain the same. When I am abased and when I am abound, I remain the same. To be abased is to be at the lowest point of your life, the state of bereavement, in the state of disappointment, in the state of betrayal. You remain calm and ponder everything in your heart. In the moment of celebration, in the moment of success, in the moment of surprises, you remain calm and reflect about what God is doing in your life. And you live a life of sobriety, and you do not play with the theological virtues, because what makes people to go astray and they lack the wedding garment is excitement. Some of you are given 20,000 kwacha, you will die because of excitement. Immediately you become excited and begin to eat what you have never eaten before, and begin to drink what you have never taken before. Instead of planning on what to do with this 20,000 kwacha, you begin to think of how to put yourself in problems. You begin to think of marrying a second wife. When the first wife is already beating you at home, you marry a second one. Excitement. St. Paul said, no, you don't become excited. You remain sober and calm. And even people will not know that you are 20,000 kwacha richer, because you are operating with wisdom. And so you don't go astray. You remain with your wedding garment. Don't allow 20,000 kwacha to make you remove the wedding garment. Keep it there. And finally, in the gospel, Jesus says, if you are not with your wedding garment, you will be thrown away. This man, this innocent man, was just moving on the street, and he was invited to come. Nobody told him where to wear. So why? Why should he be sent away? You have come to church today. Did we tell you what to wear? Did Father Nguira phone you to tell you what to wear? But you know that you are coming to church. And you are all properly dressed. Now, if you come with another thing, all of us will be looking at you. You are not with your wedding garment. So nobody should tell you what to wear when you are invited. Like that professor who came with slippers, pata pata. How can you come with pata pata to speak to your fellow professors? And you want to have first class. Those of you who want to go to school, you want to have first class. You want to have distinction, and you are jumping the wall fence. You think it's to memorize. You just go and you put your leg in water and memorize. Then in the night, you jump the fence. Professor is teaching you in the class. He has not landed. You raise your hand. They say, keep your hands down. No, sir, I want to speak. Are you in preschool? No. If you want to have distinction, you have to have that intelligence. You must also be wise, and you must also excel in morality. That is the wedding garment. So when you are invited to a party, ask them what to wear. One day, you'll be chaste. There are parties you wear suit. So that party, me, I can't go because I don't know how to wear suit. I'll be chaste. So I pray that God will give us the grace to be in our wedding garment all the days of our life, so that when the Lord comes, He will find us ready. May God bless you through Christ our Lord.